We're live. It's Thursday night. Matt, you're here with me on InfoSec to Insanity. This is episode 26. I'm hoping you have a good topic for us to talk about tonight because I'm getting kind of tired of the boring shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to InfoSec Insanity. Today we're going to dig into the biggest problems in the industry. The rise of the paper tiger.
Paper tiger. Is that like, what do you call that? Origami?
I mean, it could be origami, but I think this is inspired by your latest blog post.
Oh, yeah, no origami butts in my blog post. Yeah, you know, it was a rant and I did catch some shit for this one.
That's what we want to do. We want to catch some shit.
Catch some shit. Yeah, there were some people who took exception. One person... Fuck him. Yeah, I did get some of that too. I shared it with some friends. Oscar, you remember Oscar Minks?
Yes,
he was
sir.
on the podcast. I told him, you know, some people are going to take exception to this one. And he's like, yeah, fuck him. And then Mike Kennedy over at Ostra, he's like, love it. Same with, I mean, most of my peers, you know, I think loved it. But then, you know, there was one person who I think has less experience in this industry and probably a little less confident. Sometimes we forget, for those of us who've been in this industry for a long time, we forget that
you started somewhere.
Yeah, I think so. I think sometimes, you know, you rant and then you realize that one of the readers of your rant is intimidated. That's the word that she used. She said she felt intimidated when she read the post. So, you know, for the listeners, the post we're talking about, if you go to evanfrancine.com, go to the blog, you'll find the one that talks about paper tigers.
For all you people that are on the YouTube.
Yeah. So, and I knew that when I wrote it, you know, sometimes I write just to get something off my chest. I'm pissed off about something, you know.
Say it with your chest.
Yeah, it's a good therapy thing, you know, just get it out there and be like, you know, if you're pissed off about it, you're pissed off about it. If you're not, you're not. The good thing is at least it starts a conversation. So paper tigers, if you don't know what a paper tiger is, a paper tiger, the paper, I guess in the simplest form would be like a certificate, a certification.
You know who they are. They got all the letters
a degree,
and things after their names. Yep, those guys.
Yeah. Well, I think there's also paper tigers, you know, people that, you know, do a really good job of marketing themselves as something. They're the ones that get up on stage, you know, they do the keynotes and they talk a sweet ass game. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't let them touch my shit. You know,
you have to know enough about the person, right? So I think back to the intimidation thing, right? I haven't been in the industry as long. I haven't been around the block. So I don't know how legit some of these people are, where you have a different experience. So when they go up there and they're talking, it seems legit, but you have a different perception than what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the challenging thing is, you know, the people that are up on the stage, and there are some people that are up on stage that actually do know how to do shit, but it's for the ones that are up there on the stage that don't know how to do shit. And then you've got people, you know, for every one of those, there's 100 or there's 1,000 information security people that are really highly skilled, that know how to do shit really well that you've never heard of before. And the frustrating thing is the new people that are coming into this industry are the people who don't know any different. They don't know any different. So you hear somebody up on stage that says blah, 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 and you're like, all right, that's what you got to do. And then it's not the right thing to do. So it's a challenge, because I think what we need to do for people that are committed to doing this job, doing this work the right way, we do need to get out of our comfort zone a little bit more. And we do need to share the wisdom that we've, you know, acquired over the years. Which reminds me, Matt, I'm going to ask you a quiz question.
Oh, shit.
How do you
through experience and pain?
Yep. That's one way. And that's the thing. It's got to be experience with pain. It can't just be experience. It can't just be, well, I don't know how you'd have pain without experience, but that's one way. The other way, right. The other way you can gain wisdom is by somebody sharing it with you and you learning from it. And so, for us, for people that, and some of this is going to sound like, I think,
Can
full
I
of
give an
pride.
example for some non-technical
Yeah,
people?
but really quick,
Okay,
I
go
think,
ahead.
because what you're going to hear tonight in this podcast is you're going to hear me rant a little bit, and it's going to sound like I have all the answers. It's going to sound like I know everything. The fact of the matter is I don't know everything, but the shit that I do know, I fucking know. And so, tonight, as you listen to me ranting about certain examples, certain things, it might sound intimidating. I think that's passion. And, if I don't know something, man, I ain't going to tell you shit that I know. But if I do know it, I mean, fuck, let's get this shit right. And I'll give you a little bit of backstory, and then we'll go into what you giving some examples. So this has always been a frustration for people, I think old timers in this industry. This is, when you see somebody who's got all the credentials and they're giving people advice on how to do information security things, and you're sitting there going, I can't believe this person's even saying this shit. And I can't believe that somebody's eating this up and somebody's going to go and apply this stuff at the organization that they work at and fuck shit up. So, but I guess what brought this top of mind was I was preparing for the CISSP mentor program. We have that coming up. Starts April 23rd. For people who don't know about that, it's free, completely free, always going to be free. There's two parts to that program. There's teaching you everything that you need to know to pass that CISSP. But the second part, which I think is even more important, is the mentoring piece. It's guys like me and gals sharing our experience on whether these things have worked, how they've worked, what we've had to change about them. So as I'm reading through this book, and this is one of the best books, about CISSP, and you're reading about, well, this is how you do this and how you do that. And you're like, oh my God, that is not the way you do it. Now you're going to need that to pass the exam. So, for the exam question, answer it this way. But in the real world, this is how it works. And that's one of the differences between a paper tiger. Like, you could go past the CISSP, you could go get your master's degree in cybersecurity. It doesn't mean you're not good. It just means that's all it is. You have a certification, you have a degree. It doesn't mean you can do the damn job. And we'll also talk about, in tonight's episode, we'll talk about, am I saying don't do a CISSP? Am I saying don't do a college degree? No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you got to put that shit in its proper place. If you don't understand the perspective and you can't put it into context as a hiring manager or as somebody who works for somebody like this, go get some education yourself and figure out where this fits. All right. So there's a little bit of rant. We're going to get deeper. You're going to hear me probably swear more and all that other bullshit. So give us some examples, man.
I mean, keep in mind, right? We're not just calling people out. We're calling for change. We're trying to help fix the broken industry, and that's where this
But
comes
don't you
from.
sometimes have to call people out to do that?
Oh yeah, and I won't even say it's calling people out. I just break it down even simpler. You're keeping them accountable.
Oh, accountability. There you go. That's going to be episode 20. That's going to be episode 27.
So, I'm down. So if you're not technical, what we're really trying to explain here is, imagine you're hiring a firefighter. This guy's gone to school. He's read every book. He knows everything about safety. He's got all the exams he needs to have, but he's never put out a fire. He's never gone into a burning building. That's basically what this means.
Yeah, I mean, other examples. I have a couple of examples that I wrote down. One is it's a peeve of mine. CISOs. These are leaders. These are chief information security officers. These are people that are put in a place to lead an information security program. And you'll see some of the things that they do. One is a CISO who can't say no. A CISO who just is an order taker, doesn't lead shit. Takes orders from executive management, goes and does. It doesn't matter if it's wrong. Doesn't want to rock the boat, doesn't want to tell executive management the truth, just wants to keep their job, likes their title. That's a very common one. Another one is, somebody who's got all the credentials, but they're clueless. We see this a lot in post-secondary schools. I was talking to St. Thomas University, actually not me, my team was, and they gave me a lowdown of the discussion. It was a great discussion. I mean, St. Thomas up in Minnesota, great school. And what they're looking for is, they recognize, and this is really common in all post-secondary schools, really is they've got all the academics, they've got the knowledge, they've read the books, they've read the case studies, they've done a great job for that. What they lack is actually being able to do it. Can you actually do it? And so the problem here is in the market, the people that are hiring, we need you to do shit. We don't care if you know shit. I mean, it's obviously good to know shit. So really there's three things you have to have if you really want to get a job in this industry and you want to be good. One is you have to be a good person. At least if you want to work on my team, you got to be honest, trustworthy, credible. And you would think that you could just take that shit for granted, but I can't tell you how many really highly skilled security people I've run into that are complete assholes that you can't trust, that will stab you in the back. So that's number one, though. You have to be, we call them the intangibles. The second thing is knowledge. Knowledge is what you need to get that degree, what you need to get the CISSP. That's knowledge. The third thing that you need is experience. Experience comes from doing it. If you can't do it, we're going to have to either teach you to do it or, I mean, what are you doing here? At the end of the day. And so you see a lot of people in this industry who have spent a lot of time or really book smart. They know NIST and CSF backwards and forwards. They know all the frameworks. They know HIPAA. They know all this bullshit. But at the end of the day, they can't apply it. They don't know what risk is. They don't know how to manage risk. They don't know how to measure risk. They don't know how to consult the business to make good risk decisions.
They get all pissed off because they can't get anything that they're trying to do.
Yeah, either that or nobody knows the difference anyway. The CEO doesn't know the difference. They're not supposed to be the trained information security experts. We are. And so they just kind of float and they talk a big game. They'll talk like, oh yeah, well, NIST CSF says blah, 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 blah. So we got to do it. Well, maybe. I mean, where you're not doing it, what's the risk? And maybe you've got mitigating controls in place that alleviate that risk. So
this is a framework guiding. It's like a guiding principle. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah, I love coming into. Every once in a while, I get the. I don't like meetings at all, but every once in a while, I get invited to a meeting where the person on the other end doesn't know who I am. They know nothing about me, which is fine. I'm not in this business for you to know me. I'm in this business to do shit right. I'm in this business to teach people to do shit right. My name doesn't matter. There was one in particular, it was an MSP, and he was complaining about the fact that we were teaching the CVCISO course. So the CVCISO course is Certified Virtual Chief Information Security Officer. I created it because we need to standardize on how we do VCISO work. There are too many people in the industry calling themselves VCISOs who really are doing a disservice to small to mid-sized businesses, the ones that can afford it the least. And so I started the CVCISO program, and there's 4 levels to the program. The first level is you don't need to have any experience, 0, to be a CVCISO. And so then people are like, well, what? Doesn't that go against what you're ranting about right now? It would, but there's also a caveat to that. A CVCISO, that's called a level 1 CVCISO. They're not allowed to practice, meaning they're not allowed to lead a CVCISO or a VCISO engagement. They're level 1.
Advise that they're CVCISOs and go out on their own.
Right. So in order to be a CVCISO level 2, you need to work with a CVCISO mentor. You need to acquire at least 6 months of experience doing VCISO work under a mentor. And then you become level 2. And level 2 still doesn't mean you get to work with anybody. You get to work with small, uncomplicated, simple businesses where you've got simpler solutions, simpler leadership. It's less complicated. If you want to work in any organization, you have to be a level 3. And a level 3, you really have to have 5 years of experience and the CVCISO and a whole bunch of other things. So that he was taking exception to the fact that you could get a CVCISO and not have experience. And so I explained to him, well, this is how it works. And he says, well, but you should never be a VCISO if you don't have a CISSP. I said, well, explain to me why, you feel that way. He said, well, in my experience, and this is where things got funky, because it takes somebody with experience to recognize somebody who doesn't have experience. And so he said, well, in my experience, when a VCISO gets, drug into court, when they get sued, because there's a breach, that CISSP, really protects them. And so then I asked, well, how many times have you been drug into court as a VC? He said, well, a couple times. I'm like, no shit. Tell me about that. Well, it turns out that
Never.
It was a lie, but I let it go for a while before I called bullshit. And then he was like, well, how do you know? And so I explained, my own experience in legal shit. And never was it as a VCISO. It was more as a
advisor,
an advisor, or what do they call that? A technical expert or whatever. So the point was, in all of this, he was like so hell-bent that you have to have a CISSP. And I said,
CISSP.
Right. And I am a CISSP. I mean, I've been one since 2005 or something. So there's value in the CISSP, but I don't need a CISSP. I don't need the paper tiger piece to be effective at this job. It's a door opener. It's a stepping stone. It demonstrates to whoever who's hiring me that at some point in my career, in my lifetime, I knew enough about this one thing to pass this exam. That's it. Doesn't mean I can do it. If you look at the CISSP, I mean, there's shit in there that like Bell LaPadula. Most people are like, what the fuck is Bell LaPadula? Well, it's a security model. You'll need it to pass the CISSP. Will you ever use Bell LaPadula? No, you'll never use Bell LaPadula.
About that in business.
No, Bell LaPadula and BIBA. Well, no, and those were older security models that were used where you had mandatory access control, where you couldn't. They were government systems. Exactly.
Well, that's where a lot of that came from. It was from the Rainbow Color books.
Rainbow series, yeah. Yep. And good stuff to know, for sure. The theory around it. The thing about Bell LaPadula is we use to protect confidentiality. So the model, understanding the conceptual pieces of how that works, great. But if you're going to try to implement that anywhere,
good luck.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, anyway, long story about
not a CISSP,
that shit,
by the way. So I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, and do you need one? No, you don't. I mean, it depends on what you're doing, where you're going. In some places, on the hiring side of things, you have to have a CISSP in order to get in the door. We could argue, should that be the case? Maybe. At the end of the day, when it comes down to every single person who works in an organization, do they provide value to the organization? And do I have to have a CISSP to provide value to an organization? No, I absolutely don't. My degree is geology.
Damn.
I don't have any cyber, and I've never attended an information security class in my life.
Well, you attend your own classes.
Well, now, but I mean, in the early days, it was experience. It was trial and error. It was breaking shit. Today people are sort of afraid to break shit. People want to be told, instead of discovering what to do, people are like to be told what to do. Even the leaders, you see the people's leadership styles, and they're following books. They're following things that they've learned, in college, which, it's a good place to start, but you have to adjust, right? You have to define your own leadership style. Same thing with security, man. There's no one size fits all. There's certain concepts and things that are universal across the spectrum. But anyway, the problems with paper tigers. Actually, wait, paper tigers, the blog post. Did you read it, Matt?
I did read it.
I did not read it. Just kidding. I read it.
That's how I got my notes that I created were from your post directly.
Yeah. So the problem, the core, if we want to get to just the core of the problem, there are people.
But before we get to the
problem, I would argue
you have on your notes an example of when a paper tiger got over their head. Do you have an example?
Do I have an example of when a paper tiger got over their head?
Yep, got in over there.
And actually,
And it says you can name names, or should we? So I don't know. However froggy you're feeling.
I don't feel like calling out names right now. I mean, if you get me going, I mean, you could try poking the bear if you
Rile
want.
you up.
But yeah, I think it's more common. I think it's more common to have the paper tigers than uncommon, to be honest. It's like one particular case. Let's think of one particular case. Yeah, okay. We talked CISSP. There was a case. It was a global company, and I was the Americas of VCSO. And there was an audit function at this company, and one of the auditors, he was like single digits CISSP, like way before me.
Yeah.
Older guy, but swore by the CISSP and had to make sure that everybody knew that he was that. And so he was asking, he was making suggestions on how we should, and I'm always open to suggestions. I mean, I think any good leader in VCSO or CISO should be open to suggestions because it offers a perspective, and it's respectful. So anyway, he was sharing his perspective on how we should manage information security in this organization. And so he said, we need to get a SOC 2. And I said, why do we need to get a SOC 2? So, and then he comes off like, you don't know what a SOC 2 is? I'm like, no, I know what a fucking SOC 2 is. You tell me why it's going to provide value to the organization in its current state, meaning the organization as it sits today. A SOC 2, how's that going to provide value to the organization? Is that the best spend here? And he just was so stuck on SOC 2 that he was just coming up with every justification he could. Well, yeah, it definitely will, because it provides value to the organization because we have to go and, sort of audit and assess, all these parts of the organization and bring them into compliance with, our trusted services principles, right? TSPs. So for people who don't know how SOC 2 works, you have TSPs that you get to trusted services principles that are defined by whatever, AICPA. That's the American Institute of CPAs. You have these TSPs, and then you get to define how you're meeting each of these TSPs. You also get to define the scope for the SOC 2, whether you want it to be one application, you want it to be one department, you want it to be one line of business, whatever. So you define scope, and then you just document how you're meeting all these TSPs, and then you have to provide some proof that you're meeting them. Then a CPA comes in, they audit you against all that stuff. And if they come to an unqualified opinion, that's what you're looking for. And then they'll issue you your SOC 2 report and sign it. So that's basically how it works. So nowhere in there is it what information security actually is. What is information security? Well, it's risk management. Okay. So if I were going to do this, if I were going to advise the company to do this, then we should measure risk in all of these TSPs, but then we would make risk decisions not to follow some of these TSPs because we're willing to accept the risk. So then we're not going to get an unqualified opinion. We're going to get a qualified opinion. So fuck this. We're going to end up having to do this SOC 2, and we're going to have to implement controls that don't make sense for the business just for the sake of implementing these controls.
Yeah, it's not just a one-time thing. You're basically just adding more stuff to do.
Right. And so as I was explaining this was in a meeting with other people present. And he's like, well, I've been in information security for 78,000 years, and I've got my CISSP. I was number 7 on the CISSP.
Whoa.
And I'm like, that's an obvious kind of paper tiger moment because that's not how you do it. There is value in a SOC 2 for sure in the proper context. An obvious one for a SOC 2 is you have a large customer who requires it. And if I were in that negotiation, if there was a large customer that requires us to have a SOC 2,
ask them why.
Well, yeah, ask them why. And if, get to the bottom of that, if they're open to it. A lot of times it's larger organizations that are asking for those SOC 2s, but I'd probably negotiate as part of the contract then. Why don't you pay for it? Because I'm not getting any value anywhere else for the organization in this SOC 2.
Right. It's just for one contract. We might have multiples and we don't need it for those.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you have to understand why a business is in business. A business is in business to make money, right? And so as an information security leader, consulting the business on how to make good risk decisions, you have to keep in mind, how is this going to make us more money or keep us more money? And a SOC 2, just for the sake of a SOC 2, isn't going to do shit for you. It's going to waste money, and it's going to give you a false sense of security, which is the worst kind of security. At least having no security and not fooling yourself about it, at least you know you don't have any security, so you're not thinking you're covered. You know what I mean? So that's one that pops in my head. But they're all the time, man. You know, and I think the fact that you passed the CISSP, or you passed your OSCP, or you're past your CEH, or you're past your CISM or your CISA. I mean, the fact that you took the time.
Come on, man. Why aren't you talking about CompTIA, Security Plus? That's where it's at.
There you go. CompTIA, all that stuff. You pass
like you're
that.
hating on me.
No, man. You pass it and you should feel good about it. You should feel like you accomplished something, because you did accomplish something. But you have to put that into context. Just because you accomplished that doesn't make you an expert. Now that you have the knowledge, now back it up. Go out and get some experience to back up that knowledge. And now you got some shit.
Go walk into an organization and try telling everybody there how to do stuff because you just learned how to do it. Good luck. I did that. It didn't work out very well for me.
Well, and
even
change
your approach.
Right. And even with your CISSP, you need to have 5 years of experience to get your CISSP, to get that certification. But in some cases, when you look at all the things that are covered in a CISSP, it's super broad, right? You've got everything from information security, information security management, to encryption, to access control, to networking. I mean, it's all of this, right?
Mile wide.
And you may have experience in a couple of those domains, but don't fool yourself into thinking that, okay, I've done it over here in these things, that you're qualified then just because you have a CISSP to now do it in these other places, right? You have to be honest with yourself. Where you lack experience, you lack experience. Go get some experience, or just be honest about it. I've taken on so many damn projects over the years where I had zero experience, and I've told the customer straight out. There was one time I was hired to do an FDA validation. So FDA validation, there's two types of validations, really. It's 21 CFR Part 11, if you're ever interested in that bullshit. Drug makers, pharmacies, medical device manufacturers, they all have to follow FDA regulations. And FDA regulations, you've got qualified systems, right? There's systems that have been certified as being like
it's like a specific
integrity.
State. When I worked at a medical manufacturing company, you couldn't fucking change shit.
No, including patching.
Yeah, patching, restarting a service, fucking dude, you couldn't do shit.
Right. So I had a company that there was a large pharmaceutical company, because my last real job was MGI Pharma, which is a pharmaceutical company, but I was their CISO. Information security. I didn't do FDA shit. That's a specialized skill where you had a whole team that did FDA shit. So I knew about it. I'd seen it. I'd interfaced with it a lot, but I'm a security guy. Well, I was doing security stuff for this other, pharmaceutical as FR Secure, and they liked the work I did. They liked, working with me, and they're like, "Hey, can you do FDA validation?" I'm like, No, I really can't. And they're like, "Well, we'd really like you to do it. What would it take?" And I'm like, "Well, what it would take was I would be using this project to learn it, right? I don't know how to do this. I will do a bunch of reading for it. I will talk to friends to get some advice, but I have zero experience here. I'm not even a paper tiger in this area, right?" But so they said, "Well, we still like you to do it." And I'm like, "Okay, then, it's good." Because I think there was a trust that
your integrity and your mission,
it was going to get done right regardless, even if it almost killed me. And it did. It sucked. It was the worst project I think I've ever worked on, but we got it done, and it passed and everything was cool. But I guess the moral of the story there is it's okay to not have experience in something, but be honest with your employer, be honest with your team, be honest with your friends, be honest with your peers, be honest with yourself that I can read, I can get the knowledge, never done it. And, if everybody's cool with that, okay, then here we go. That's how you get experience.
That's how you build trust too.
You do, yeah.
Being honest.
You just, because how many people in our industry do we run across that are okay with sharing the fact that they don't know how to do something?
Not many.
It's crazy. And there's lots of shit I don't know how to do, man. But the things, like I said, the things I do know how to do, I really know how to fucking do because I've devoted myself to doing those things right. I don't want to take $1 from any customer if it wasn't $1 well spent. If you didn't get a value at least commensurate with what you paid, then don't fucking pay me. And that's always been the mantra, since 2008 when we started FR Secure. And back in the early days, man, we had on the vCISO side, before we really defined well what the hell a vCISO is, 2008 to 2000, maybe 12, I had myself personally like 8 vCISO clients, and they were all paying anywhere between $3,000 to $5,000 a month for me to be their vCISO. And I couldn't shake this problem. Like, I'm not providing $3,000 to $5,000 a month of value to you. And it was really bugging me. And I kept talking to, my peers, and they're like, well, just, don't worry about it, man. It's business.
Take the money.
And so finally I had enough, and I called up every one of my customers, my vCISO clients. I said, why are you paying me? And they were like, what? What do you mean? Because you're a vCISO. I said, I know I'm your vCISO, but what are you getting out of me? I haven't done anything for you in the last 2 months. And they said, well, it's just good to have you on our side when we need you. I'm like, that doesn't cost you anything. Pick up the fucking phone. I can't take 3 to 5. I can't take this anymore, because it's a hypocrite. I'm saying I'm in this industry to fix the broken industry. Well, I'm contributing to the brokenness when I do shit like that. And that's one of the reasons why I think I get so passionate about people who don't do things right, is because you're causing more damage, causing more harm than you are good. So it's always been a big problem for me because we get paid for this shit. I'm supposed to be the expert. People fucking listen to me. When I tell them, do this, don't do that, they're like, well, all right, Evan said so. Well, I better fucking come up with the right damn things. And if I don't know, then I better admit I don't know. And if I don't know, I'd be like, well, it seems like this might make sense. Maybe we try this and let it run for a little bit and see what's up. Let's monitor it. Let's keep an eye on it and tweak it if we need to and pull it back if it's not going to work.
Like telling someone to jump in the ocean without like a life preserver or a boat or,
And I get it too. Crazy. Like I don't, the paper tigers who are paper tigers, and if you're honest with yourself and you look at yourself in the mirror and you really, if you've got that kind of integrity, if you're a paper tiger. And I think, sometimes it manifests itself as imposter syndrome. It's not all imposter syndrome people are paper tigers. It's just, that's one way it can manifest itself. What imposter syndrome, I think, comes from is when you try to compare yourself with somebody else, like, well, they're so good at this damn thing. And so you feel intimidated. Like, I'm not qualified to do this. I think the imposter syndrome that comes from a paper tiger thing is, you're not good at it. Even though you've got, people are treating you like you're good at it, whatever job, you've got the credentials that say you're good at it. You're getting paid well to be good at it,
stuff
but you're not good at it.
Flooding towards you like so fast. Right. You just don't want to say no because you want.
Right. Yeah. And so I think to avoid the paper tiger thing, I think it's got to start out with like brutal honesty with yourself, with your peers. If your boss is going to fire you because you don't know how to do something, so be it, man. It's probably a shitty place to work anyway. Now if they're going to fire you because you don't know how to do something, but you told them before that you didn't know how to do something, well, you might deserve to get fired because you fucking lied.
I mean, that's a basic principle of like growing up that we learned. Like, don't be a shit.
And the worst person to lie to is yourself, man. To put, to think that you're an expert in something when you know you're not. It's okay. And you shouldn't get your sense of self-worth out of your job, right? I could be a terrible. Well, but you're at that stage of life, man. You know what I mean? You're at that stage of life where you're still dating, you're still, kind of settling down. I mean, you spent that time in the military. It takes a little while to shed that skin and move into this new world.
I'm just letting people know, like, they're not alone.
Because your identity, man, and I think as a friend of yours that's, been around you, you have come so fucking far, dude, as just like a person. I mean, you're certified scuba diver.
Yo, I just
jumped out of an airplane and shit.
I just got my fins and my mask. I'm going to jump in the pool this weekend, take a quick refresher course just to practice.
That's awesome, dude.
They got lenses in the goggles, though, so I can see better.
Right.
Yeah, that was expensive.
Oh, I bet. So so not just calling people out, we are calling for change. This part of the industry is definitely broken. We have plenty of examples for that, but who's to blame?
I would say the hiring managers ourselves are to blame, because instantly everyone's going to say HR is the problem. And I would fight back and say, you don't have a good enough relationship with your HR to ensure that the posting is what you want it to be, or you don't understand what you're even looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I think there's plenty of blame to go around. I think you have businesses, when you talk about who's ultimately responsible for information security in a business, it's the person who runs the business. It's the board of directors. It's the CEO. And so it's their responsibility ultimately to secure this shit.
To support you to make and empower you to do what you need to do.
Right. So you have to at least get involved enough to know sort of what you're looking for, right? And to question it, right? When your CISO says, we have a budget for this and for that, question it. Make it make sense to me. Because ultimately, I'm the one responsible, if I'm the CEO of this organization, because I am, right? And this is the way I run it. I don't manage information security at FR Secure, right? And I don't know all the things that are going on. I don't manage the money at FR Secure. But what I do, knowing that I'm ultimately responsible for every single thing that fucking goes on here, make it make sense to me. They're coming up with a new plan on the relaunch of Security Studio. And there was some, I think, some questions about whether or not I was going to, because I didn't give them really any direction. I want this to be their plan. It's your plan. I'm not going to create your plan. I'm not even going to give you input into your plan. I'll answer questions if you have, certain things you need answers to, but it's your plan. And so there was some I heard it secondhand, so I don't know if it's really true. Somebody said somebody was worried that I was going to veto the entire plan. And I'm like, okay, you've known me for very well. No, you don't know me worth shit, which is kind of, I look in the mirror and I'm like, maybe I haven't, maybe I didn't share enough about me. I mean, I think good leaders should look in the mirror first before, but yeah, why the fuck would I ask you to create a plan and then veto your plan that I asked you to make? No, that's not what's going to happen, but it does need to stand up, right? Because as the leader, I will ask questions about the plan. I will challenge the plan because it needs to make sense to me. That's why, not because I don't like your plan, but make it make sense. And that's the same thing that CEOs. So when you talk about who's to blame, how many CEOs, how many boards of directors, take that same approach to information security? I'm not going to manage this thing. I don't expect the CEO to get their hands dirty and start managing firewalls. I don't expect them to even make the minutia types of risk decisions, the operational and tactical risk decisions. But you do need to understand how your strategic direction filters down and who you've delegated to make those risk decisions. And so when they come back up and they bring these things to you, question it, challenge it, but don't veto it. That's stupid, right? So I think from a CEO, just a business leadership perspective, I think they hire paper tigers because they don't know any different. The CISSP is the gold standard. Well, I have to have a CISSP then, who's the CISO here. I think within our industry, we overvalue all these certifications. You look at LinkedIn and somebody passes an exam and it's like, oh my God, you think the world changed. And that's good, right? So I think the people who create the certifications, I think ISC squared, I think ISACA, I think they should be a little more honest with people that take these certifications, that this is how it enables you maybe to get a better job or enrich your job, but you still got to go get experience.
I'm not sure it's really ISACA or ISC squared that's putting out the false information about what it will give you as much as other people that are trying to pump it up.
Yeah. And I don't think it's not lies of commission. It's more like lies of omission.
Okay, that's fair.
Where you should tell us a little bit more. Tell the people a little bit more about what this gets you. They should be more
vocal. It's like they're in the back seat just collecting cash and giving out certs.
Yeah. And I think educators, all throughout higher education, you have lots of master's programs, bachelor's programs in cybersecurity, and it's a shit show. Because I've talked to a lot of them, and I mean, their heart's in the right place. I think they're trying to do the right thing, but I think pride gets in the way. You've got academics teaching security to students as opposed to practitioners teaching security to students. You're creating a product that's knowledgeable but can't do shit. So I think there's a problem there. I think people in our industry,
they focus on the flashy stuff. They had an opportunity to get involved in interdisciplinary stuff, but then they just started focusing on pen testing, and it's like, fuck, you're so far off now.
Yeah, totally. We need critical thinkers, and if they want to get into security, help them figure out what path to take in information security. We need more non-technical people than we need technical people, to be honest, right now.
People skills.
Yeah, people skills, management strategies, risk management, how risk works.
Building.
Yeah, for sure.
If you don't have a relationship with your legal team, your communication team, your IT team, you're just going to be pissed off at yourself every day.
Yeah. Or you just resort all right, this is the way it is. And I'll just keep collecting paychecks because it's a safe job.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
It is bullshit, especially if you want to affect change. I don't know how people can. It reminds me of my kids. My dad had a thing, growing up, because I was an only child. My dad, and maybe this is why it's such a big thing for me, but my dad would say, if I have to tell you to do something, it's too late.
You should already know. Yeah.
And what he meant was, there are obvious things that need to be done all around you all the time. And if you have to wait for somebody to tell you to do it, it's too late. And so it was like, I have 5 dogs. There's a dog shit in the middle of the floor. Do you walk by it? Or do you pick it up? Take that same thing, as a CISO working in an organization, there are obvious things that need addressed. Right? Like risk management, like metrics, like whatever. And so
going to conferences,
you could just walk past it and life will still go on. The stink's still there, but you still got a job, you're still alive. That's the wrong way to manage this shit, right? If something, the good security people like you, the intangibles, when something's broken, we need to fix it. So now I have to figure out strategies on how to get that thing fixed, right? Just because management doesn't want to talk to me, well, then what's the strategy to get them to talk to me? I mean, you try to figure out the solutions to these problems so that you can fix information security, in the organization. So I think there's a lot of people that are just comfortable in their job, or they've fallen for the bullshit too,
They've
like
never gotten the right
the SOC
advice.
2 guy. Well, and the
You know,
lack of accountability in this industry, like who the fuck's going to know?
yeah, that's next episode.
That is next episode. Because that
Yeah,
guy who
so
was preaching SOC 2, SOC 2, SOC 2, SOC 2, obviously nobody ever held him accountable to tell me how that's going to make us more money.
it just adds. So I actually had that conversation with my boss 2 days ago. We had initially planned our compliance strategy to do like third-party assessment, pen test every other year, alternate. However, we are struggling to have accountability and getting our IT guys to actually remediate the pen test findings. So I said, it doesn't make any sense to do another third party risk assessment and pay for it and have more findings just keep adding up if we already have a platform where we can do our own self assessment and kind of baseline where we're at without spending money. He was like, holy shit, I love what you just said.
There you go, brother.
And now we're changing it. So, boom, value add. Now I still have to set up the meetings and ask all these questions and get people in the same room to, you know.
Right. But it's such a great exercise when you get out from behind your own desk and you engage with people, especially when you talk about, information security and, risk assessments, when you ask about a specific control, make sure they feel comfortable not knowing what I'm asking, right? One of the big problems and one of the things we can work on in doing this risk assessment, it's a side benefit, is fixing our language problem, right? So when I ask you, do you do this or do you have this? Please feel comfortable not knowing what I'm saying. Because if you were going to do the other way, right? If you're going to do a marketing assessment on me, or you're going to do an accounting assessment on me, I don't know half the shit you're talking about. So, it gives you that opportunity to level set. It also, gives you a chance to establish rapport throughout the organization, get your face out there. People are like, hey, that Matt guy, he's pretty cool. I think I want to hang out with him. It works. All right. So why is paper tiger a problem? If it's not obvious, I'm going to give you 4 reasons why paper tigers are a problem. Number 1, they create a false sense of leadership or expertise.
I agree.
It's like you're following like a false prophet, right? So you'll think we got it under control. Evan's on the job and we got a CISO. It's taken care of.
Put it
If
to the bank.
Evan's a paper tiger, you're fucked, Number 2, they stall real progress. They take you, if the name of the game is risk management and we're not spending the easy answer on where to spend the next information security dollar, it's easy answer, hard to do, is where your most significant unacceptable risk is. That's the next dollar. So that's going to take some work, right? You're going to have to do a risk assessment. You're going to have conversations with the business. They're going to have to tell you what risks are acceptable and what risks are not acceptable. That's what's going to justify your budget, right?
That's the hardest conversation, by the way.
What's
Trying
that?
to make them define what is acceptable.
It's not my business. It's
Yeah,
your
I know,
business.
but they don't want to do it either.
Oh, they don't want to do it either. All right.
That's the hardest.
Well, then it's probably a top up governance issue, right? We need to just shore up the delegation piece from the top.
We're pivoting back and we're starting a different conversation.
Yeah. See, that's the way you do it, brother. Good work. Other places they stall real progress is, I mentioned the SOC 2 guy following a framework just for the sake of it being a framework, or doing compliance just for the sake of compliance. Those all stall progress. They steal value from the organization.
I like what you put here, Matt rant opportunity. Just because you pass an audit doesn't mean you're secure, Karen.
It's not, man. It's not what it's about. Yeah. Unless the
And
audit is, yeah, go ahead.
you're gonna that person's gonna spend more money too, trying to do shit that isn't needed.
Right. Because when you talk about progress, like in a business, what is progress? It's more money. It's more market share. That's progress. It's not more secure. That's not progress.
Lock my shit down.
So if I make recommendations or I have a budget or I implement controls that restrict our ability to make more money, I'm stalling progress. And so people will say, but you have to restrict the business. Well, maybe you do.
Depends
In some
on what
places
they
we
want.
have to put some processes in place, but get creative. Think outside the box. That's where experience comes in. If I just follow the book, well, multi-factor, we have to put it in. I don't give a shit. It's just got to go in. So fuck you. It says it right here. Multi-factor authentication must go here. Well, okay, that's a paper tiger thing. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's other mitigating controls we can put in place to protect the authentication, protect the login. I mean, you have to talk about these things and you have to work with the business. Right. So they stall progress. Number 3, they damage morale and trust.
You don't really think about that one, but I see it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on the morale thing, when you come off as being the guy who has all the answers, because you have your paper tiger, and then people ask you questions about, well, how would you do it or whatever, and you just stick with the damn paper tiger thing, whether they're going to say it or not, they know that you don't know what you think they know, and that does erode trust. I mean, when they find out that I've never done this before, that I'm brand new at this, I still like the opportunity because I think it would be good experience. And, I'll make a case to still do this. This is where it's at. That builds trust. What doesn't build trust is, oh yeah, we got it. We can take care of it. We got it. Yep. And then go back and be like, oh fuck, how are we going to do this? Shit. Okay. Well, let's read a book. Okay. The book says to do this. Yeah, you're screwed.
I got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know what I guess the negative is part of what you already said about leading the wrong way or spending too much money, but I think that what I'm thinking about is they let technology vendors drive their program because they're out there, the Gartners, the things are talking about all the acronyms. We need this, we need that, we need this, and they're buying all this shit. I went to an interview one time and they gave me a paper that said, do you know how to use these 125 security tools? What the fuck? No.
That is the absolute wrong place to go for risk decisions, is the vendor.
Yes.
Unless the vendor,
a consultant company is your friend, but a vendor.
And I think be careful about your consulting company too, right? Put them to the test. Your consulting company, are they paper tigers or do they actually know what the hell they're doing? Do they have any, track record of doing this work before? Don't take them just because they're a consultant doesn't mean they're good. And I also think with consultants, one of the things that we've always done at FR Secure and will continue is, being product agnostic. We do that because it's trust. If I tell you your firewall sucks and then come back and sell you a firewall, it may be all justified by proper risk decisions and everything like that, but why even muddy the waters? We don't want to sell you products. And if you're going to go buy a product that doesn't make sense, we'll tell you. Your vendor, your other vendors who represent products won't tell you, right? They'll sell you the firewall, even though you don't really need any more firewalls. Most of them won't tell you that because that's, they get paid. They got bills to pay like you and me. All right. Number 4, they perpetuate broken systems. We just continue to implement shit that doesn't work. The book says that it works. Theoretically, it's supposed to work. I don't know why it's not working because I don't have any fucking experience.
I put it in and the lights are going. That's good.
Yep.
I don't need to configure anything. What the fuck are you talking about?
I still nobody to this day, and I'll put this out as a challenge for anybody who listens to this podcast later on. How do you justify implementing a firewall without proper egress filtering. The firewall is supposed to work both ways. So I grew up a network guy. Every firewall I've ever installed was managed this way. Granted, networks have gotten a lot more complicated over the years, but that's also a big fucking problem. Complexity is the worst enemy of information security. How many places have we made network architectures or applications or just the tech, infrastructure overly complicated? And so you're pissing away a shitload of money, on tech that you don't need or an over-engineered network architecture or whatever. You're pissing away a bunch of money on that, and you're making my job a hell of a lot harder. It's going to cost you more money. I mean, if you really want to, and tell me also, how would you compensate for a firewall that doesn't do egress filtering or does egress filtering, but it's not properly configured? What's the compensating control for that? Endpoint shit, IDS, IPS,
Yeah.
data loss prevention.
It's going to
keep tacking more and more and more tech. And then you keep tacking that tech in. Like, you already cut the corners on the firewall implementation. You don't think you're cutting the corners on the DLP? You don't think you're cutting the corners on endpoint protection and all this other shit?
The answer is going to be, well, there is no perimeter. The firewall isn't a perimeter anymore. But it still would be a perimeter around your data center and your ISP entry points. You would still have a firewall.
Right? Your crown jewels aren't distributed everywhere. They're not mobile. They're in data centers somewhere, whether it be in Azure or AWS or in your own data center. So yeah, those firewalls, absolutely, you should have egress filtering properly set up. But and that would be, right, if you're going to do risk management, those are your most significant risks. And then as you sort of move out, if you've got satellite offices, all those firewalls should be implemented properly.
Technology level risk. I don't know if that would be your most significant risk at the business level.
No, but and going back and addressing the ones that are already not done properly versus let's make sure that every single one that we put in from now on is done properly or is managed properly. And it may not be your most significant unacceptable risk today, but eventually as you start, clearing your risk register of those more significant risks, it'll pop up again and again.
Yeah.
And you may just continue to
push it off.
Accept that risk. But you need to understand what it is you're actually accepting too. And that's where it comes back to the paper tiger versus somebody who can actually explain why this may not be a risk we want. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So
it's really just a reverse proxy.
Right. For sure. And so paper tigers, they don't from different perspectives, they hurt the paper tiger themselves because they fooled themselves into thinking that they're good at something that they're maybe not good at. Or I'm a paper tiger right now, but I'm committed to getting that experience. I'm committed to, filling these gaps. That's legit. But still be honest. Still be honest with yourself, with the people around you, that just because you have a CISSP does not make you an expert. You have to be able to do the work, right? So it affects your career.
I would give someone a high five if I saw them at a conference and they said, "Hi, I'm a paper tiger." I'd give them a high five.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
way to own it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And I
don't know. I'm trying to think.
I'd mentor you. I'll mentor.
I'm trying to think if I've been a paper tiger or not. I guess it comes back to maybe your purpose for being in this industry. Do you want to be in this industry just to have a job, or do you want to be in this industry to make a positive difference? I think in the lives of other people.
Even if you're not doing cyber and you're doing IT, it's not just a job. It's a career. You have to have passion because guess what? No one gives a shit about IT or cyber unless shit's broken. So it's always negative. So you have to have the wherewithal. Is that a good word to put in there? Or gusto or something like that? Some cool word insert.
And I think as you get more and more experience in this industry, you can start to find strategies where information security can actually make you more money. It's not all about loss mitigation, especially when you walk into an organization that's been doing it wrong for so long. I mean, there's instant like cost recapture on all kinds of shit. And then figuring out when you work with the business, how to integrate security into the strategies, keeping in mind that if complexity is the worst enemy of security, as I continue to earn more trust and credibility with this company, I'll have more opportunity to recommend simplifying things, simplifying processes, simplifying technology, simplifying governance, because that's where you get the wins. And that's all part of risk management, right? I mean, just logically, a 30-step process or a 3-step process, which do you think is harder to secure?
30 is job security.
30 is probably job security, but it's not the right way to do it. So, and how it hurts everyone? It hurts the company. It hurts the company in numerous ways. Yeah, for sure. It hurts peers. When you give advice to other security people and they think you have experience in these things and you don't have experience in these things, but you got the paper, you got to be honest, man. I mean, or just keep your damn mouth shut and go get the damn experience and then start preaching and start telling people how to do shit. But if you've never done it before, there's nothing wrong with that. We all started somewhere. All of us hadn't done it before.
I think we
but
need
then you learn it.
people to talk about if they've tried to do it and they failed. Fucking talk about that too. That's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you see a lot of people up on those stages that are giving people advice, or like the book that I'm reading, for the CISSP. If you just read this book and there was no way to point it out, you could easily be convinced that this is the way you're supposed to do security stuff. And then you would go to the company you work for and you would go do that security stuff. Whereas understanding that what you're reading is a book, and the book it's anecdotal, if anything, right? It's theoretical. It's meant to get you to pass the damn exam. It's not a manual for how you do security stuff. But we're also not honest about that stuff. I mean, how often, I was talking to a peer of mine last week, and he's writing a piece of software, and it's gotten pretty weird. And he asked if I would, you know what the hell you're doing. Will you take a look? I'm like, no. And I mean, I can, but I don't think I'm your best option, because I've always traditionally been a breaker of software, a hacker, not a software developer. And I think what you need is a software developer. I'm just not good at that. But we have to be more honest, because you're misleading people. I've seen, and maybe I do need to start calling it out, a little bit more. Maybe start going to conferences and be the guy that's like, that doesn't fucking work.
You should just go to random conferences with like a mask on, or like
I should do that.
A special,
maybe that would be
jacket, sit in the front and be like, "You're full of shit," or in the back. Yeah, sit in the back. You're full of shit.
You know what?
You're gonna be at SecretCon. You're gonna be at SecretCon.
Maybe some future episodes. We'll do some footage like this. Maybe I'll have to go to some conferences and just and not be the asshole all the time, right? If there are speakers up there, speakers up there that are, we're preaching from the same hymnal. Yeah, man, let's call it out. Fuck yeah. I'll be that guy that's like, exactly, brother. That's how you do it. Versus, some of the shitty advice. It's like, and maybe I wouldn't call them out like publicly in front of everybody while they're on stage, but certainly afterwards.
It's a keynote or like a side talk.
But certainly afterwards, I mean, shouldn't somebody take them aside and be like, you got to stop this. There's 3,000 people in the audience and they were eating up bullshit, and I'm not expecting you to, go back out on stage and apologize, but I'm expecting you to stop preaching bullshit.
Fix yourself.
Yeah. Check yourself before you wrek yourself. Chickadee, chickadee, check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Because you're wiggity wet.
Right. Because a lot of the people that are in the audience, if they don't have experience, if they don't have the wisdom, in those certain circumstances, they're not equipped. They're not equipped to call bullshit. It would be like me going to like a medical device conference, or, an accounting conference, or, a sewing conference, and sitting because I really want to get into sewing, right? And there's somebody up there telling me how to do sewing, and it's totally the wrong fucking way to do sewing. I wouldn't know any different. I would go home and do what they just told me to do. And I think a lot of people in our security industry do that. Yeah, I think a lot of people in our security industry do that. Like, well, the guy up on stage said blah, 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 blah. So that must be the way it's done. Somebody's got to hold that to account, don't you think?
Maybe that is part of the mission. Maybe we need a unsanctioned group of people to do that.
I'm definitely going to make some enemies if I decide to do that. Because a lot of those people, they're up on stage for a reason. They're up on stage because they're good at marketing themselves. They've got a hell of a lot of followers.
Someone trusts them.
Yeah. So I think doing something like that, because I've done that on Twitter a couple of times, some just shitty security advice. And they had like, I'm not on Twitter very often, so I got like 2,000 some odd followers. They had like 200,000 followers. And I called something out. And I got attacked, man. Seriously. And I was like,
just bring a 9-iron with you.
Right. And what I said was still correct. And that's part of the reason what I've learned is that people that can't defend what they're saying, if they can't defend it, they either change the subject or you attack my character. So I got called a whole bunch of names. I'm like, none of this shit is relevant to the fact that what he said was wrong, But something's got to be done more about this, I think. I don't know. And if nothing else, like, let's say I'm wrong. Right. So I call some dude out, some lady out. I call them out like, hey, what you're preaching ain't right for these reasons. And then they come back at me and go, no, it is right for these reasons. I have experience in these things. And I'd be like, well, shit, I just learned something. Right. It could go both ways.
Nothing wrong with learning.
Well, the last thing I want to be, if I'm in this business to fix the broken industry, the last thing I want to do is give people shitty advice. Right. If I'm out here giving people shitty advice and nobody's telling me, what the fuck? You know what I mean? It's like somebody's got to wake me up if I am doing that. And that's why, I think a lot of times I just get out there and say the shit that I think or the shit that I feel, and then deal with the blowback, man. If somebody's going to say something, then say it. As long as you're staying on point and not attacking my character.
People are scared to say something to you?
I think sometimes, yeah. Because I've talked about that before. I had somebody who worked at FR Secure who brought something up like that people were afraid to tell me. And I'm like, why are people afraid to tell me? I'm like actively seeking. I remind people all the time, help me, help me lead you better, help me do better. And if they're still not telling me, and I was like, why do you think they're still not telling me? And he said, well, I think maybe it's your title. Because at the time I was, the CEO, and I was like, so just having the CEO title, you think keeps people, it intimidates people, it keeps people from telling me shit? And he's
certain
like, yeah.
type of people. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I have no title.
Just take it off your door.
No, John Harmon's the CEO. Oscar Minks is the president. I'm just a guy who does shit. I think sometimes I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing. But that's the thing too. Like if you want to get experience, like if you're in this, you don't want to be a paper tiger. Right? You've committed, like, I want to do this the right way. I want to be a damn expert. I don't want to be a paper tiger. So then you're going to have to get experience. And what do you do? Like, because people say, well, I can't get experience because nobody's going to hire me. There are other ways you can get experience. You can volunteer your time. There's lots of places, schools, small business, nonprofits that can't afford an information security expert that might be more than open to, so ask around. If you want to get into like pen testing, I've always told, new people getting into pen testing, hack yourself, hack your iPad, hack your MacBook, hack your satellite dish, hack everything on your fucking network. it's the principles, the basics are still the same. It's what's different is more technologies, more complication, shit like that. But the basics are the basics, right? TCP/IP is TCP/IP. Routing is routing. Applications are applications. Computers are computers. It's so the fact that you don't have experience and you don't want to be a paper tiger, don't let that stop you from just going out there and getting experience. And if anything, you can build like a portfolio that will help you when you go seek jobs, right? So open up a GitHub, plop your shit in there, demonstrate, this is what I do. This is what I can do. Because when we're hiring,
Someone
that's what,
steal your code and make money off it.
sure, why not? I mean, did you write the code to make money or did you write the code to just write the code?
To demonstrate.
Yeah, because that's what's going to get you hired. That's what's going to get you an internship. For the people, I think that, take this job a little bit more seriously, because at the end of the day, we're all asking, what can you do? How will you provide value to us, our customers? I have my
That's a
nephew,
good
niece.
interview question. How are you going to
What's
provide
that?
value?
For sure. Yeah. Everybody's got to provide value. And if you're a security person, always be prepared to answer that question. How are you providing value to the company? Always be prepared to answer that. There's lots of ways, depending on your role, depending on what you do. Yeah. Because it reminds me, and that stuff came from pain too, right? It's that wisdom, that experience through pain. I'll never forget the CEO in the board meeting who, as I'm delivering an information security risk assessment, and he asked me, will this make us any money? Will this make us more money? I didn't have an answer for that question. That was, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, something like that. I just kind of took that shit for granted. I was like, what? And the reason why it was so damn painful is because it was embarrassing as shit. I get paid well. I profess to be a damn expert in this job, and you just totally stumped the shit out of me. So now I have an answer for that question anytime somebody asks me. But will you learn that, getting a certification? Will you learn what it's like to be in that situation? Will you learn what it's like to deal with an incident response? You can follow the steps in incident response, but what happens if those steps don't work? What happens when things go off the rails? Does the certification teach you how to keep your cool? Does your certification teach you how to ignore the noise and stay focused on the task at hand? Does it teach you to not become an emotional wreck and panic? No, it doesn't teach you any of that shit. You learn that shit through experience.
It's a good time to inject a quick little hack or whack. Let's put it to the test. People have heard us talk about hack or whack before. This one is scenario based. Evan, are you ready?
I'm ready.
You're a CISO. You're interviewing a new cybersecurity analyst.
Do you say new or nude?
They could be nude because it's remote, but I think it's new.
Okay.
I think, yeah, it's new. A new
So you're the CISO. You're a CISO and you're interviewing a new analyst.
New analyst, yeah.
Okay.
You ask them how they'd respond to a ransomware attack. This is their answer. We'd follow the compliance checklist and notify the authorities. Hack or whack?
It's fucking whack as fuck.
Yes. Compliance won't stop the breach. The real life skills will. If your first
is this what AI is telling us?
Yep.
Okay.
You like my stuff, don't you?
I like your stuff, man, but I just know from experience, there's no way in fuck that would be the
if
right
your
answer.
first instinct isn't containment, you're already losing.
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to start with initial investigation. What the fuck are you dealing with? Even before you get containment. But on the other side of that, like, I'm not sure I would care. I mean, I'm not sure I would ask that question of an analyst anyway, right? I mean, it depends on what the analyst is. And in most, when
sometimes
an organization
you're just asking them a question to see how they can think on their feet, not really.
True. Yeah. Because like, if I asked an analyst that question and they answered that way, that wouldn't disqualify them for the job. It
just means they're whack and they have a chance to learn.
Yeah. It would be an opportunity to share. Yeah. Yeah. I always said the first thing to do in any incident response, update your fucking resume.
That you responded to one?
No, just update your resume because you're probably going to take the fall for this.
Unless you win. You can win
I suppose.
sometimes.
Yeah.
You don't always lose. That should be a different conversation. What is the definition of an incident?
All right. Should we do an episode? Maybe episode 20. What number is this? 26. So 27 is going to be accountability. 28. Let's do incident response. Let's talk through incident response. Let's talk through. Yeah. Because I have lots of stories to share on incident responses.
Way more experience than I do.
But you also have some experience. And I think
I have some.
And that's one of the things I really appreciate about this, about you and I getting together on Thursdays to talk about this stuff is I don't value your experience. I value your perspective. That's what I value. And it's the same with, everybody on my friends, my security teams.
Would it be
I don't
bad
expect
if
you to be a damn expert.
I value your beard? Is that wrong?
It's not wrong. That's beautiful. It makes me feel like there's still a chance for me. Yeah. So, all right. So the moral of the story, be on the lookout for paper tigers. If you find a paper tiger, just learn how to recognize paper tigers. One sure way to, if you feel comfortable doing it, to, I guess, unpaper tiger a paper tiger is to challenge them.
Walk up to them and start them on fire. No, don't do that. But you could verbally light a fire under them.
Yeah. Ask them questions, in the proper, context, the proper scenario. If they are giving advice on something, ask them, have you done this before? Yes, yeah, of course I have. I have my CISSP. That's not what I fucking asked. I asked, have you done this before? And if so, tell me how this advice that you're giving right now, tell me how that worked out. What results did it create in that, right? Because that's what ultimately what we're driving for, right? Is some kind of result at the end of this. So if you've done this before and you're making this recommendation, explain to me how that worked out for you, and or it worked out great. Well, I need details. I mean, great. What does that mean? I don't even know what that means. But I think that's how you get to the bottom of it. Well, but you can't, it's a paper tiger kind of posture if you're posturing about something that you've never actually done. Right? The posturing is like, well, I did this. Well, I did that. Well, I did this.
I wrote this.
If you really did do this, okay, I'm going to give you a benefit of the doubt. You really did do this. Help me. I want to learn from your experience. Tell me your experience. I mean, if you don't feel comfortable just calling straight out bullshit, humble yourself in this situation and ask, awesome, I would like to learn from you on this. Can you explain to me how it worked out?
Asking more questions is really the core theme in everything.
Oh God, yes. And learning how to ask questions in certain scenarios, read the room, right? There are some times when a situation does call for you to be an asshole. And there are times, and confrontational, but there are times when, questioning a paper tiger or somebody I suspect to be a paper tiger, I want to learn from you. Because the reason why they're paper tigering and they're giving that advice is probably an ego move anyway. So what better way to serve your ego than to submit myself to it? So awesome, man. Tell me how that worked out. I want to learn
about it, man. Yeah.
Fuck yeah, let's go. And then they'll just continue to dig and then ask questions more about the digging. That's why police interrogations, that's how those work so well.
Well, yeah, they get you talking.
And keep asking questions. Just keep asking questions. Keep asking questions. If you want to take a social engineer out of their pretext, keep asking questions. Because when we do social engineering, we build a pretext, which is essentially, it's like creating a script for acting. Right? I'm going to act like I'm a appliance repairman. Guard. Yeah. So as an appliance repairman, these are the typical questions I might get. These are the answers I need to provide. You study that, you get ready. Okay. And then the best way to take them out of that is keep asking questions, because you can't, as an appliance repairman, the script only goes so far. Eventually, you get a question that you didn't prepare for, and now you're.
Get out of here.
And the same thing with posturing. The same thing with paper tigers. I guess it's okay to be a paper tiger as long as you admit that you're a paper tiger and you're
Yeah.
approaching the job like that.
You're trying to learn, and maybe someone needs to kick you a little bit, but that's all right. So, Evan, if you woke up tomorrow and you changed one thing overnight.
What if I don't wake up tomorrow?
Well, we're not thinking about that. We're thinking about when you wake up tomorrow and you changed one thing in the middle of the night. What did you change?
About in what context? Like my whole life?
Fixing this problem.
Of fixing this problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think we would standardize the performance measurement of roles in information security based on intangibles, knowledge, and experience. So we would equally weigh those things so that we put the paper tiger piece, we put that in proper perspective. So if there was one thing that I would wake up and have changed, it would be a methodology to assess that.
Like you do
an objective one.
Like a personality assessment, and then you balance that with where they've been with their certs and have some sort of standard formula that you can use so it's consistent.
Exactly. And so it's applied equally across the board, right? So it has nothing to do with the way I look, the color of my skin, gender. The role calls for these things. This is how well this person fits that role based on, intangibles. That's probably going to be the hardest one, I think, to truly methodologize.
Standardize is what you used before.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you. But intangibles, knowledge, and experience. Come up with a metric, a numerical representation, and that's take into account how much that person costs. And you've taken a lot of the subjectivity out of the hiring equation. And I know what I'm getting. This person has experience. I need to know, can they do shit?
Yeah.
So that's what
would
I would
be
do.
helpful.
I would wake up and that's what would happen while I slept overnight.
I like it.
How about you? Do you have something different, or does that one work for you?
I mean, it works for me, but if I would pick something else, it'd probably be just get rid of social media. You'd have some people freaking out, but that will help with not just this, but imposter syndrome, and it'd help with a whole bunch of other stuff.
You'd have to have a lot of therapists on standby to deal with those people as they would withdraw from that.
We would really just take down those core CDNs that everything routes through, and social media would be gone.
I could get behind that potentially.
I mean, there's value there, so I mean, it's not as easy to just say get rid of it. But I think if we look at where we were 2008 to now,
yeah, you do a good job too. I think of stopping the spread of bullshit, disinformation, malinformation kind of shit. Mm-hmm. I think you'd stop a lot of the bullying potentially that goes on.
Cyber stalking.
I mean, human beings, it's in our DNA. We are social creatures, not fake social, face-to-face social.
Community.
Yeah, we value touch. We value nonverbal communications. We value emotions, handshakes, hugs. You don't get any of that in social media, especially like, Twitter and shit like that. It's all like
it's
a false
but toxicity.
Persona. Yeah, big time. All right, I get behind yours, you get behind mine. Let's get to work. I gotta write I gotta spec this sumbitch out, I guess, if we're gonna make it a standard. And it's gotta get approved, implemented by somebody before I get up, which would be like 6:30 in the morning. So it's gonna be an all-nighter tonight.
Look, yeah, the industry's broken. And it's broken because we're rewarding the wrong people. We're rewarding people that look good and not the ones with real world experience, or people that want to be held accountable. as we're going to talk about that next week, lacking accountability. But people also need to want to do it, not be scared, and then you also need people that are able to accept it. So it's a two-way thing there. So big shout out
Good
to
leaders,
everybody.
good leaders want to be accountable, man. You know, I mean, and don't use the leaders you see on the television and shit like that, like politicians. Like, holy shit,
No.
are they a bad example of good leadership? It's yeah, and accountability. You know, I want to be accountable. I want people to tell me when I'm fucking up, and I want people to do something about it, because you got to feel the weight of the people you're leading. These people count on me, right? They got to put food on their tables. They got to take care of their families, the customers, you know, they got to do the same goddamn thing. So fuck, you got to feel that shit. Anyway, so yeah, accountability, big time, man. I'm super excited for us to talk about that next week. Look out, if you haven't gone, you know, go to evanfrancine.com. I'll post the blog post. Today's Thursday, probably Monday, Tuesday next week. I'll put it up there.
Yeah. Big shout out to everyone that's doing the real work.
Does this look funny?
You're probably making fun of me. No.
No, I'm not making fun of you. I'm just doing it.
Yeah, I know. You know, the real people are the ones that aren't on LinkedIn. They're the ones that aren't going to conferences. You see people at all the conferences, like they're probably not working. Or they're in sales and they claim that they're working. I mean, I've never been in sales, so I don't know how that is, but I don't know. So shout out to everybody, especially the guys on the IR teams, right? Doing the work day in, day out. Keep up the fight.
Yep. I feel
If
your
you
pain.
guys know any paper tigers, drop it in the chat. Let's get some thoughts going. Like, subscribe, podcast, YouTube.
Yeah, and we'll put together some contact. We'll put together an email address where people can send things, you know, suggestions, comments that they don't feel comfortable sharing publicly. We'll do that in the next episode too, so you'll have a way to get a hold of us and express your pleasure or displeasure with what we say.
We want to help.
All right, good episode, man. Thank you. See
Appreciate
you
you.
next
Appreciate
week.
everybody.